Okay, so there's 3 things you need to do to be rich. You must do these 3 things. If you don't, you're going to run into a lot of difficulty and you'll either be broke or worse, poor. So broke, by the way, is having no money. Poor is having less than no money. Poor means you can't afford to actually live and get the basic things in life. Firstly, let's define the word rich. It means plentiful or abundant. And actually comes from the French word, which means powerful. Now notice there is no mention of any amount of money there in the word rich. Now a lot of people will go out there and they'll say they want $1 million. That getting $1 million will mean that they're rich. But the problem is, if you're spending $2 million, then you're not rich, even if you did earn $1 million. So it has nothing to do with the amount of money you're actually making. In fact, you can earn $10,000 a month and you can be rich with our definition, if you follow the rich habits. So let me tell you what they are. First one is solvent. You must be solvent. And this is actually our ultimate goal, one of the rich habits, is you must be solvent. Now, solvent means you've got more assets than debt. If you have less assets than debt, you are insolvent. So this is our first rich habit. The rich are solvent and constantly improve it. And the poor habit, which is the opposite, is the poor are tolerant of being insolvent. So there's our first habit. Now, our second rich habit is being viable. Viable means having more income than expenses. And if you have more expenses than income, you're unviable. Now, the word viable actually comes from the Latin word, which means able to live. So if you're viable, you can live. And if you're not viable, it's pretty tough. So our second rich habit is, the rich are always viable. The poor habit is the poor tolerate being unviable. Now, in order to be viable and solvent, you must allocate. Now, the word allocate has a very specific definition within rich habits. It means this: to put money aside for a specific purpose and use it only for that purpose. And our rich habit is the rich always allocate, and the poor habit is the poor spend without plan. Now, these 3 rich habits form what I call the rich triangle. It starts with the step of allocate, which then leads to being viable, which then leads to being solvent. But they repeat, and you do it again. And the more you allocate, and the more viable you are, the more solvent you are. And around it goes. Now, unfortunately, the rich triangle has an opposite, not surprisingly, called the poor triangle. And the poor triangle highlights the 3 poor habits, which eventually wind you up broke and poor. And they are, instead of allocating, you spend. And you become unviable and insolvent. And around you go. Now, when you put the rich triangle on top of the poor triangle, you have what I call the rich continuum. Now, a continuum is a series of steps where the tiny little steps in between are not very noticeable, but the end results, the end points are very noticeable. You see this in life a lot with children. You can look at a kid and if you haven't seen them for a year, they grow. You can really notice a difference, but every day you don't notice it as much. Well, it's the same with the rich continuum. At the top we have rich, and at the bottom we have poor, and right in the middle is broke. And people, every single day, every company, every individual, every country is moving on this rich continuum, moving up and down, moving up a little bit, moving down a little bit. Mostly people are unaware of exactly where they sit on the rich continuum. But if you know and practice the rich habits, you will rise up the rich continuum, where you're free from money troubles, from worry and stress, and you'll stay there. If you want to know more, buy and read my book, Rich Habits. And remember, if you know and follow the rich habits, you'll never again be poor or broke.